So I have a fascinating story for you guys here today. I first was made aware of this story earlier this week because it was reported that a radioactive wasp nest was found along the Savannah River down in Georgia at a facility where they used to make nuclear materials for nuclear weapons during the Cold War era. There's a lot of sites in Georgia and South Carolina where they used to produce these materials. Now, I saw this story about the radioactive wasp nest, and immediately it looked like a story that I would want to talk about here on YouTube, but I said, you know what? I don't want to overreact to this. It's just one wasp nest. Surely everything will be okay. Maybe this isn't part of a bigger problem. Probably nothing to worry about. Well, now it's been reported that they have found 4 more radioactive wasp nests, this time in South Carolina. So at the time of this recording, as far as I know, they have found 5 different nests from South Carolina to Georgia. Now, some people seem to be relieved because they haven't found any wasps in these nests. That's not good news. That's not relieving for me at all. My hope was that they would find the wasps with the nest so they can destroy them and wipe them out. But no, that's not the case. So from the looks of things, there's a huge possibility that we have radioactive wasps flying around Georgia and South Carolina right now as we speak. And did we really need this? Did you have radioactive wasps on your bingo card? Is the world not crazy enough already? Hell, they claim that aliens are coming to attack us in November. Now, folks in the South got to deal with radioactive nuclear freaking wasps. So they're finding these things now. And let me expand upon this further, because the nuclear radioactive wasps, yeah, that sounds crazy, but that's not even the biggest concern. The biggest concern is, how did these wasps get into this radioactive material in the first place? There must be some contamination somewhere. There must be a leak somewhere. Some of these sites have not been operational for decades. Yet they still have a lot of radioactive material sealed off at these sites. And somehow, some way, maybe it's leaking out. And that's why they're finding radioactive wasp nests. And who knows what other type of animals may be affected. Who knows what type of, maybe water supplies could be affected. There is a whole realm of possibilities here. Not only are we worried about the radioactive wasps that may be flying around here stinging people. I mean, it sounds like something out of a comic book or a sci-fi movie, but that's what we're dealing with now in 2025. But there has to be a leak somewhere. Something's got to be contaminated. And they're really trying to downplay this situation, folks, because they know they done messed up. They're trying to say, oh, you don't got to worry about this. You don't got to worry about that. They're literally on the news down in Georgia and South Carolina telling people, don't worry. Wasps usually don't fly too far away from their nest. So as long as you're not too close to these facilities, hopefully the radioactive wasps don't get you. And everyone's focused on the wasp and they're focused on the nest. But the real thing everyone should be focused on is, where is this leak? How did the nest become contaminated? what's really being covered up here. Because this is much bigger than WASP, folks. Much bigger. We're starting to see these old facilities where we were producing these weapons years ago. We're starting to see that maybe a lot of this waste, a lot of these materials aren't as contained as we thought they were. And a lot of people are waking up today, finding out the hard way, that they live right next to a site filled with radioactive waste. A lot of people didn't even know that until this story started spreading about the WASPs. So yeah, folks, right in your own backyard. It's not just South Carolina and Georgia. All over the place they got stuff like this, folks. And it's like we've reached the time where whatever they've been doing to contain a lot of this stuff, maybe it ain't working so good anymore if you got radioactive wasp nest out here. Across 2 different states, mind you. But they actually talked about this a little bit on the news. I'm not saying that we can trust anything these people say, because there's going to be some powerful people that are going to be trying to cover up this situation. This is a very dangerous situation because, like I said, we don't know what can be contaminated. We don't know where the leak is. We don't really know what's going on right now. All we know is the wasp and the wasp nest. So there's going to be a lot of people downplaying this, as they always do, just like they downplayed the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio. They downplay everything to cover their own asses. So be careful with what you believe when, you're listening to people who may have an agenda. I don't have any agenda. I'm just a regular dude talking to you guys about stories that I'm fascinated by. These people got a lot of money. They got their reputations at stake. They don't want people knowing just the full extent of the problem here. Let's just say that. But with that being said, I'm going to roll this clip really quickly. But first, I would like to ask you guys for a huge favor. If you watch the videos, if you like the videos, if you support the channel, please consider supporting the channel in one of these free and easy ways. You could hit the like button. You could drop a comment. Please share this video on social media. That is so important. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're already subbed, make sure you got those notifications on. YouTube will turn your notifications off for my channel because they don't like my videos. And YouTube, 9 times out of 10, will not recommend you my videos. You got to have your notifications on. And you got to go make sure they're on every couple of weeks because they will take you off the list. Because they hate people like me that just aren't afraid to speak the truth. Now, if you would like to take your support one step further, you can always donate via Cash App or Super Thanks. It's not mandatory, but it is always greatly appreciated. With that being said, though, let's listen to this news clip, and then I'll be right back with more.
Okay, radioactive wasps could be on the loose in South Carolina. Yeah. Now, the question is, are they going to sting someone, turn them into a superhero? Will they mutate, terrorize the planet like Godzilla? Hey, maybe they're already underground, eating pizza, learning ninjutsu from a humanoid rat. You see where I'm going with this? Well, here's the thing. We first brought you this very buzzy headline last night, and while radioactive insect bites play a prominent role in superhero origin stories, we only have a radioactive nest at this point because we don't know if we have actual radioactive wasps. Workers found the nest earlier this month at a Department of Energy facility known as the Savannah River Site. It once helped produce nuclear weapons, and that nest had a radiation level 10 times higher than what's allowed. Those workers, they sprayed the nest with insecticide, bagged it up, no wasps were found. The Department of Energy says there's really nothing to worry about. No leak from radiation waste tanks, they say, that the nest was likely contaminated from leftover plutonium and whatever else from when the site was still operating. But one watchdog group is not buying it. The Savannah River Site Watch says we need better answers on where exactly this radioactive waste came from, how the wasp nest soaked it up, and whether other radioactive nests are out there. So joining us right now is that group's executive director, Tom Clements. Great to have you here. So let's get right into it. Why are you skeptical of this Energy Department explanation?
Well, in their occurrence report that they put out, it says that the nest was contaminated by legacy waste from the site. It's sitting right by high-level waste tanks that are holding tens of millions of gallons of high-level nuclear waste that was a byproduct of producing plutonium and other materials. So that material is legacy waste. Also, leaks or other contamination around the site would be legacy waste. Now, I don't know if this is coming from those high-level waste tanks that I mentioned, but it's a possibility that these wasps could have been gathering woody material to make their nest from trees that had been contaminated. And when you look at it, Savannah River site is 300 square miles. They had 5 nuclear reactors that produced 36 metric tons of plutonium. So I'm just wondering what is going on here. Why don't they say what radioactive materials were involved?
How do you plan on getting more information?
Well, they released what's called an occurrence report, and here's it printed out. And they have one paragraph saying the level of contamination that you mentioned and that they bagged it up, but they don't say what the radiation was, where it came from. So I'm left basically to file a Freedom of Information Act request to try to find out if they did a report on this and if there's other documentation. And there should be other documentation. Problem with that, though, is the Freedom of Information Act has never worked very well, and they drag their feet in providing documents. So it makes it really hard for the public to find out what happened.
You talk about reports. You say there have been reports of other animals, maybe even humans, that were exposed to radiation at this site?
Yeah, over time. The reactor started up in the early 1950s to make plutonium and tritium, a radioactive gas that goes into all nuclear weapons. And there were leaks into the waterways. These are reactors that had, the water went straight through the reactor. Hot water was pumped into the creeks. So in the bottomlands now, there's radioactive material because it would have gone right through the reactor. So animals have picked that stuff up. And the ecology lab on site has documented that there has been some contamination of animals. When they have deer hunts on the site, they take a sample of tissue. So this is the first time, though, I've seen this kind of insect contaminated and so close to high-level nuclear waste.
Big picture, what are you concerned about? I understand that you're worried that this radioactive wasp nest could be a harbinger of things to come. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, it makes me wonder if there's some kind of unknown pathway that we don't know about from those high-level waste tanks. And they are emptying them to their credit. They're solidifying, they're glassifying the high-level waste coming out of there. So they're moving the waste around, they're pumping it out. I don't know if there was a pump that leaked, a pipe that leaked, a cover of one of the tanks that might have had a problem, or if it's, as I said, contamination of vegetation nearby. So I think the public needs to know more about what is causing this, because there could be some underlying problem that has more impacts than we can think about right now without having enough information.
And by the way, you've been monitoring the site for 40 years. Is it operational? Is this facility operational in any way?
Oh, yeah. They are still pumping high-level waste into these tanks. There were 51 of them, for 1 million-gallon tanks. 48 of them are still active, so high-level waste from processing spent nuclear fuel is going into them. And another risk that's coming is they're going to be making the plutonium core, the pit of weapons, or they plan to. So they plan to bring tens of tons of plutonium to the site and basically purify it, melt it down, and make the plutonium core of the nuclear weapon. So there's going to be a lot more nuclear material coming into the site, and that's really of concern.
Yeah, I may have made Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle jokes, but this is really no joke. You raised some really compelling points here, so let's keep a careful eye on it. Tom Clements, we know you are too. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you very much.
Now, I believe that this news segment was actually filmed before they winded up finding even more nests. And it's funny because at the beginning of the news clip, he's talking about, someone becoming a superhero because they were stung by a radioactive wasp. And, you know, are we going to have our own superheroes out here now? The Wasp Man of South Carolina, here to save the day in Charleston. Like, you know, but seriously, what happens to someone if they're stung by a radioactive wasp? I don't know if I even want to, I don't even know if I want the answer to that question. Is it just going to be like a normal wasp sting? Like, I don't know. It just, that's the type of stuff that we're not supposed to find out about. You know what I mean? Like, we were never supposed to get to a point where we have to find out what happens if a radioactive wasp stings you, yet here we are. So, since that news segment, it appears that the situation is even worse than what they thought when they were discussing it then. And I didn't know a lot of the information this guy revealed. I didn't know that they had all of these problems at this site. I didn't know that they were planning on getting all types of new material and pumping out all types of new radioactive waste. And the excuse that they're going with is, oh, that's legacy radioactive waste. That radioactive waste is old. What? Sometimes I feel like, how could I put this? Look, I don't understand radioactive waste and all of this stuff. That's for people far smarter than me. But often I feel like these people who are supposed to be far smarter than us in this stuff, I feel like they just throw things out there just expecting people to bite. I'm not biting. Oh, that's just legacy radioactive material. Nothing to really worry about. Nah, I'm still worried. And then, if the wasp are going and getting some type of material, radioactive material from the trees or wherever, and they're using it to build their nests, then birds can be doing the same thing, right? Birds can be going to those radioactive trees and pulling off a leaf or a twig and flying God knows how far. And they may be making radioactive bird nests miles and miles away. If the wasp is using these materials, then birds can use those materials. And the point that I'm getting at here is that this radioactive waste and stuff can be traveling pretty far due to these different animals, birds, insects, what have you. So I do think that this should be something that is being taken more seriously, but instead, they're really kind of trying to brush this under the rug. And I think they're trying to hide behind the headlines of wasp nest and stuff like that, because they really want you focused on that. And look, I get it. That's probably the most fascinating part of the story. But that's not what we should, that's not the main concern that we should have when looking at this situation. Because as I've said, as that guy said, this stuff could be leaking from somewhere, or it's not even it could be. Obviously, it must be. If we got radioactive wasp nest, obviously this stuff is getting out. It's not contained very well, right? So who knows what problems could be coming from this. The problems could get worse because they got more materials headed that way. And just within this last week, they found all of these different nests. And if they're finding them here, then there are other places as well. And they probably haven't even found everything yet. And if they're willing to tell us this, there's probably some things they're not willing to tell us. So this is like just another thing that you got to add to your list, you know, of things to worry about, of crazy things just currently going on. It's hard to keep up with, but make sure, jot it down in your journal. Radioactive wasps are here now. 2025, we're now dealing with radioactive wasps. But for now, let me know what you guys think about this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell, and I'll talk to you all very soon in the next one.